Have you ever wondered how every time or anytime something tragic happens in the news, typically it's a natural disaster where something terrible happens and it involves the lives of many people. And there's always the people on social media who are so quick to tie a direct link between that event and some fulfillment of scripture. And typically they will say, see, this is a sign of the judgment coming from God or from the Most High. And, this is proof of it right here. Well, there's a long history of where that actually comes from. And we're going to look at that. And for those of you who are of African descent, you're going to be quite surprised of your history and how it ties to this. Join us as we discuss this particular topic.
Hey, you guys, I am on my way to get some more water. We probably do this about once a month. And this is actually going to be our last time getting water here. We are going to be moving, so it's going to be my last time getting water here. So, look, mixed feelings. Yeah, so, I would usually try to come up here about once a month. And typically I bring a lot of, jugs and stuff with me. But I will say it's somewhat of a relief not having to bring all of them. I can just bring, I'm just bringing a few today. So, well, as you can see, we made it. And now I'm filling up. So anyway, this whole thing about people not going back to check up on these prophecies, to circle back, to see if, hey, listen, what you said back then, you were lying, man. It didn't happen. I was just sitting here thinking, it made me think a little bit more. If you've been following this platform, we have been talking about how the Bible is centered around Mesopotamian. It's very Eurocentric. It's very, you got Greeks and Romans that basically contributed to it. But when it comes to Africa, now they may have used African culture as somewhat of a backdrop. They may have even taken African storylines to a degree, but by and large, the Bible itself is not an African book. It's not. I don't care how many people may tell you that. It's not. You got people out there that will say that the Bible is the black man's history book. It's not. It's definitely not. Once you actually look at the history, it is not our book. And for anybody to sit here and to think that somehow that your oppressor is going to make sure that the historical record of your people and your culture is accurate, you crazy. But anyway, so with that, understanding that, I find it very strange. I find it very interesting that a lot of these end time prophecies, again, it's not just the Bible, it's also other ancient cultures as well, non-African ancient cultures, that always have these doomsday predictions about the end of the world, and how they believe that the world is just going to end a certain way. It's going to blow up, it's going to be destroyed, it's going to be wiped out and all of that. But when you contrast that with African cultures, African spirituality, you will be very hard pressed to find any kind of end of the world is going to burn up, is going to be destroyed because the gods are angry. You're going to be very hard pressed to find anything, any kind of scenario, any kind of belief system within the African construct that says that.
I mean, the only people that when you look at these different cultures, I don't know if you've ever taken the time to actually look at this or even consider this, and that's the fact that all of these massive end time death and destruction scenarios, where they come from. They don't come from African. It's not part of African culture to think that one day creation, all of nature is just going to be destroyed and wiped away or whatever. I mean, no, you won't. You will barely see that. You will rarely hear of those kind of scenarios when you look at African culture, when you look at African spirituality. They don't really go into that. It's really not a central theme, or I would say a theme at all, you know, when you look at African cultures and when you look at African, you know, spirituality. They don't talk about that. The only cultures and spiritualities that you will hear saying that kind of stuff is really coming from Europe. Okay, so this whole doom and gloom thing, I actually had some time to think about it. You can see I cut my hair since then. I did the video and all of that, and decided to look even further into this. And what this is called, it's actually called, I hope I'm saying this right. I have been rehearsing saying this word, is referred to as apocalypticism. Apocalypticism, okay? And this is Wikipedia, but you can look at any source and they're going to tell you the same thing, okay? And basically what it is, and I'll just read it here. Let me make it a little bit bigger for you. They said it is the religious belief that the end of the world is imminent, even within one's own lifetime. This belief is usually accompanied by the idea that civilization will soon come to a tumultuous end due to some sort of catastrophic global event. Apocalypticism is one aspect of eschatology in certain religions, the part of theology concerned with the final events of world history or the ultimate destiny of humanity. And then they go on here. Let's see. I'll just continue to read it. Societal collapse, human extinction, etc. Right? And then it goes on. It says the religious versions of these views and movements often focus on cryptic revelations about a sudden, dramatic, and cataclysmic intervention of God in history, the judgment of humanity, the salvation of the faithful elect, and the eventual rule of the elect with God in a renewed heaven and earth. Arising initially in Zoroastrianism, apocalypticism was developed more fully in Judaic, Christian, and Islamic eschatological speculation. And then we can go on from there. Okay, you can read this on your own. So as you can hear already, this isn't something new or was something that was birthed out of Christianity. It was actually started even further back. You know, this whole notion of the entire earth is going to be judged. The entire earth is going to be destroyed because mankind has been bad. And so we need to look at that. And I know for some of you who are listening, you know, to me right now, you know, I'm sure you're already like, oh, this brother has gone way off now. He has gone way off. Now you're questioning the Bible. Well, that's all we've been doing for some time now. And like I said, you can check out our what is it? Our Linktree page, where we have done in-depth studies on this, where we are actually looking at the history of the Bible. Who wrote it? You know, why did they write it? Where did these sources come from? What were these people like? We looked at all of that, and we haven't stopped, and we're going to continue to look at that. But this is one particular area that is of great interest to me, because I know for myself, I've seen this happen over and over again, where people will on the spot prophesy that, you know, if there's some kind of catastrophe or something that happened, well, that's the judgment. It's judgment, family. Then you got some people who will get excited about that because it's a sign that things are ending and and our salvation is imminent. That's what we believe, right? But that belief didn't just happen just recently. That actually is very ancient. and it goes way, way back. And we're going to look at the parallels between this belief system and the belief system of those that come out of Africa, okay, of African descent. All right. And I know we got some people in the house that don't want to have anything to do with Africa. That's fine. Then you are excused from this. Okay. But for the rest of us who proudly acknowledge our African roots, we're going to look at that. We're going to do a comparison right here. It's not going to be too long here, but let's get back to this page here. The first thing you're going to notice as you go through here, and what it does is they actually look at the eschatology, hope I'm saying that right, of the different belief systems on where you can see this and where it comes from. You can find this in Buddhism, Christianity, of course, Hinduism, in Islam, in Jewish or Judaism, in Norse tradition, Taoism, and Zoroastrianism, right? And then they have interreligious. Right off the top, there's something that's missing here. Africa. Yes, that's right. You won't find, to my knowledge, when you start digging into basic baseline African belief systems, African spiritual belief systems, you won't find any kind of end time that God is going to destroy all of the earth because he's angry and the whole earth is going to burn up and get destroyed and all of that. Ladies and gentlemen, what I want to announce to you is that idea that all of nature is going to be destroyed by our Creator, that did not originate from Africa. It did not originate from that. That originated from this family of belief systems that you see here. That's where it came from. All right. So I'm just going to go through it very quickly. You can read this on your own. All right. And I would encourage you to do so. But this page right here is showing you exactly where this belief system come from. They're just giving you different examples, such as Christianity, of course. And then they go through it here. Okay. Christianity, and then they go, they do a really good breakdown of it. Right. Let's see. Then they go to Seventh-day Adventism, Mormonism, Jehovah Witness, and they say Christadelphians. That's an interesting one. I'll read that one. For Christadelphians, Armageddon marks the great climax of history when the nations would be gathered together into a place called, in the Hebrew tongue, Armageddon, and the judgment on them would herald the setting up of the kingdom of God. After this, Christadelphians believe that Jesus will return on the earth in person to set up the kingdom of God in fulfillment of the promises made to Abraham and David. And it goes on there. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Branch Davidians. Then they talk about Islam here. Let's see. We'll just read a little bit of this. The day of judgment is characterized in the annihilation of all life, which will then be followed by the resurrection of the dead and judgment by God. It is not speculated when Qiyamah will happen, but according to prophecy elaborated by the Hadith literature, there are major and minor signs that will foretell its coming. Multiple verses in the Quran mention the last judgment. Okay, so you'll find it there. In Judaism, Moses of Crete, a rabbi in the 5th century, claimed to be the Jewish Messiah and promised to lead the people like the ancient Moses through a parted sea back to Palestine. His followers left their possessions and waited for the promised day when, at his command, many cast themselves into the sea, some finding death, others being resurrected or rescued by sailors. You'll find many examples of this. Okay, ancient Norse religion, Ragnarok. I know that rings a bell for many of you who saw the movie anyway, but no, this is where the movie comes from. Ragnarok is an important astrological event in the ancient Norse religion and its mythology, and has been the subject of scholarly discourse and theory in the history of Germanic studies and is attested primarily to the Poetic Edda, compiled in the 13th century. We'll skip on, okay? Let's see. I'm just skipping here. Let's see. The creation of mankind from tree trunks is repeated after Ragnarok as well. Simic says that in Germanic regions, the concept of mankind originating from trees and ancient, and additionally points out legendary parallels to a Bavarian legend of a shepherd who lives inside of a tree, and then it goes on, right? All right, let's see here. Yeah, then they got some tree things going on, so it involves some resurrection here, and I guess this is what it is over here. All right. Yeah, you can go on and through all of this here, all of this. The Mayan calendar, that's another one there. All right, where they believe that there's a new age that's going to take place here. Zoroastrianism, which goes way back beyond the Bible, way before the Bible. And I would encourage you, to spend some time here on YouTube and just look at the history of Zoroastrianism, and you're going to find a lot of parallels in the Bible that actually came from Zoroastrianism. As Zoroastrianism predates the Bible by hundreds and hundreds of years. And anyway, so there's a belief system again about a day of judgment that you'll find in Zoroastrianism as well. And, like a lot of these Wikipedia pages, you'll find a lot of references there that you can take the time and look at on your own. Okay. So as you can see, this belief system that, that the creator is we're building up to a day or a time where everything that we see around us is going to be destroyed, because of a pending judgment, is something that mainly comes out of I'm just going to use the word Middle Eastern, right? But it's, that's a more recent word, but we'll just say Middle Eastern / European origin. That's where this whole death and destruction, and that's where everything is leading to the end. That's where this comes from. If you are someone that is, again, like I just said earlier, of African descent, that you trace your roots to Africa, okay, we look like me for the most part. When you contrast that to the belief systems, the baseline belief systems that you'll find in most of African spirituality, well, they don't believe that. In fact, you'll be hard pressed to find anything in their belief system that teaches that a day is coming where all of what we see around us, all of nature is going to collapse on itself and it's going to be destroyed and wiped out. You will not find that. Instead, what you will find are a couple of things. You will find, number one, if you take a look at the Congo cosmogram. Now, this is something that we've talked about and many times, but, really haven't gone into too much detail on it because it's a lot. It's quite a bit. And it's something that I would recommend. There are some really good books out there about it. If you're curious and you just want to learn a little bit more about it, I would encourage you to do so. But the Congo cosmogram, in short, reason why I'm using that is because you'll find that used in Igbo, many other cultures all across the continent, some variety of it. But in short, the Congo cosmogram, it's, you've seen the symbol before. I have it on let me just bring it on the screen, you guys. You can kind of see a little bit of it there. Okay. So you get general idea of what it looks like right here. Right. So what the Congo cosmogram, what it represents is the circle of life. Now, you guys have heard that song, the circle of life, right? We've been, we sang that, see that in cartoons, but not realize that actually was how our people saw life, right? So what they saw was we were born out of water. So you start in water and then you go counterclockwise. So it's water. And then the second point is life. This top part basically represents life. All right. And then you end in fire. Fire represents death. And it's not something to be in fear of. It's just you go back ages and ages. I mean, when something is destroyed, it's usually, people will burn it. Right. So that fire represents death. And then you go into the afterlife. The afterlife is where you abide with the ancestors or whatever. And then it just kind of circles back over and over again. What I'm telling you, as you're listening to me, before you jump into your emotions and before you jump into the comment section, I'm not telling you this is what you need to believe and you need to start embracing all of African spirituality. I am not saying that. What I am saying is let's look at history from an accurate perspective, and understand the origins of where these things come from. Do you understand what I'm saying? So again, to recap, this origin of, all of nature is going to be destroyed and blow up and all of that because of judgment does not originate. If you look like me, if you trace your roots to Africa, when you look through African culture, African spirituality, that is a foreign concept. You will not hear that. For the most part, you will not see that. There may be a few examples here and there that you may see, but the baseline belief system that you'll find throughout African spirituality is not one where creation ends in death and destruction and massive whatever. That is something that comes from external, outside of Africa. And then it found its way in the Bible, and, there you go. And that's where that comes from. But I will encourage you, as we're kind of bringing this to a close, I will encourage you to do this. I'm going to give you two examples as to why this whole narrative needs to be questioned. There was a situation where, again, for my family and I coming out of the Hebrew construct, that was a heavy thing that was taught that, hey, we're heading to a time where everything's going to be wiped out. Everything's a judgment. The judgment is hitting across the land. Look at the heathens. They're being destroyed, all of that, right? And so there was this incident. There's two examples I want to give you. There was a case in Alabama, and this was not even a year ago. Alabama was really struck with some serious storms. It was one particular case, I think this was recent, where it pretty much wiped out an entire town. I mean, it just kind of leveled it. And there was some Hebrews or whatever that was on social media saying this was the judgment of the Most High on the land. And so my question to them was, okay, so you believe that, those of us of Africa that come out of Africa, African descent, those of us that came through we can trace our roots to the transatlantic slave trade. You believe that we are the Hebrews, right? You believe that that's who we are, right? And I said, yes. I said, so let me ask you something. So why would the Most High then, if this system is being judged, then why are the people being caught up in that judgment as well? Do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, you have people in saying this is the time of our deliverance and all of that. Okay, then if that's the case, then why are these people in this town being judged? Why is that? And their response to me was, well, they're probably Hamites. It was something like that. I'm like, okay, so this whole town was made up of Hamites. And in case some of y'all don't realize, Hamites, if you listen to Hamites in the Bible, they were perceived to mean the ones that were cursed, right? That's what people believe in. And you got a lot of people who still believe that. So that was their conclusion on that. They were just like, oh, they must have been Hamites or something like that. And I was like, the whole town was Hamites? I mean, what's the probability of that? And how do we know that? Can you quantify that? Can you prove that? And of course they couldn't do that. But it was convenient thing, and easy just to say, well, yeah, they were being judged or whatever. And, and then you got some people saying, well, hey, listen, maybe they're still in sin and maybe they're not doing all the law, statutes, and commandments, that kind of thing. Well, nobody's doing all the 613 law, statutes, and commandments. Not even Jewish people are doing all the law, statutes, and commandments. So no. So, but again, it's a convenient thing to say, but a lot of people will oftentimes not circle back and really ask these kind of questions like I'm doing right now. And if you do ask these kind of questions, then people get angry. They get mad because in reality, they don't even have answers for themselves. And so the other example was not too long ago, state of California was experiencing some serious droughts. I mean, they were not really getting a whole lot of rain at all. Well, this isn't really something out of the ordinary, being that that part of the country is a desert. I mean, I mean, deserts aren't really known to get a whole lot of rain. I mean, even though parts of California do get their water from up north where it's not so much a deserty climate, but the fact of the matter is, California, a good part of it is it's a more of a desert climate. Not all of it, but a good part of it is. And so they were not getting water, right? They weren't getting a lot of rain. And so you had people who were very quick to jump on social media and conclude that this is judgment on the land, that the Most High God is judging the land for its wickedness. He's judging these people for their wickedness and all of this stuff, right? And so I was like, okay. Then it came out recently that they not only got rain, they got an overabundance of rain. So much so it not only matched what was made up for what was the deficit, but it went beyond the deficit. That's how much rain they got. It was like in a short amount of time. So on one hand, we're saying, so the same people who are out here saying this is judgment, judgment, judgment. But then when we circle back and check it, what is this? Not judgment now? Is it Simon Says? What is this? You understand what I'm saying? So to wrap this up, to conclude, I wanted to kind of show you, just kind of take you through my thought process, like in the beginning of the video, just kind of really thinking about this, and then really taking the time and just kind of diving in as we just did just now, just looking at this page here and looking at the history of where this actual belief system comes from, this thing that's really driven by fear. And then when you kind of step back even more often than not, religion works hand in hand with fear. I would dare say without fear, you don't have religion, because you need fear. You got to scare people into a commitment. You got to scare people into believing. If you don't believe, this is going to happen, that kind of thing. And so, again, it's just something to think about. Of course, we don't ever have the whole picture on all of these things, but we got to get out of just simply putting things in certain baskets because it's convenient. What I'm proposing, what I'm suggesting for you is for you to start asking questions as well. There's nothing wrong with asking questions, but this really right now, what we're talking about, it really does not add up at all. It doesn't add up at all. When you look at, and going back to Africa again, when you look at African culture, a lot of African culture is about the preservation of nature. Very much so. It's the high respect of nature, and respecting it, protecting it. It's always about really and also seeing the spiritual value of nature. When you look at many African cultures, and I'm speaking Africa, for the Aztec culture, I'm not really speaking on that or some of the other cultures that are out there, but I'm speaking on African cultures. It really, you're not going to, they really, for the most part, built in is a protection of nature and seeing the value of it. Now, when you contrast that with the people who gave you the Bible, to European people, when they came into the continent, what did they bring? The direct opposite, did they not? The first thing they wanted to do, we see a bunch of rubber trees. Let's cut them all down. Then they want to say, okay, we see gold. We're going to dig up the ground and we're going to just destroy this whole mountainside so that we can get all the minerals and stuff out of there. Oh, there's some oil there. Let's suck all that up. Okay, anybody gets in our way, kill them. Let's kill them by the millions. We're going to do all of that, right? And then animals, when they saw animals, especially, oh, there's a rare bird. Let's kill that one. Oh, there's a rare goat. I mean, they're just shooting and killing everything. Oh, and then after we kill it, we're going to chop the head off, and then we're going to mount it on the wall so we can look at it. Do you see the difference in culture? What I'm talking about here? So you got one culture that's, when you look at it, a lot of it is about the preservation of nature and what we see out here. Then you contrast that with the people who gave you the Bible, it's the opposite. You understand what I'm saying? But with that, bundled that is fear. You always got to be afraid of it. Soon as you start, when the natives would start seeing those Christian symbols and them waving those flags, when the Spanish and all them were coming in, they knew, oh, snap. Here it comes. Here comes sickness and disease. Here it comes. Here it comes. But on the flip, they were all about the preservation. Yeah, you can look at, like I said, again, when you go in what we call today Central South America, the indigenous people that were there, the northern, what we call Northern America too, and all of that. A lot of these indigenous cultures were all about living in synchronicity with nature. That's what it was all about. But when you contrast that, and it was really nothing to fear. Do you understand what I'm saying? You contrast that with the people who gave you this book. They have to pre-bundle it with fear. And so that's why you have all of these other, whoa, you better be careful now. You better watch it because you may or may not make it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So again, my challenge to you is to start challenging yourself and begin to wonder a little bit. Begin to ask questions. There's nothing wrong with that. And I would encourage you to do that. So anyway, I hope you got something out of this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. And you guys take care, and I'll see you next time.